All right, so this is the meeting, digital producing in an age of pandemic meeting. I've begun recording. My name's Claudia Alec. Halud is hosting everyone in the lobby. So we're meeting today on the platform of Zoom. I'm about to go to the lobby and see if I can successfully record part of the lobby. Although I do see that Sabrina has joined us in the, hello Sabrina, welcome. Sabrina takes a moment for someone to go from the waiting room to the main room. Hello Sabrina, welcome to the main room. I'm now gonna send you to the lobby and then I'm gonna go visit you in the lobby. So that's what's about to just happen right now. I'm gonna send you to the lobby, off to the lobby. All right, so now I'm about to go try and visit the lobby to see what happens. So I'm gonna hit the join button. I'm joining the lobby. I'm a genius. I'm muted. Sorry, friends. So I had everyone, we've been doing an experiment for the first 5 minutes of entry. I'm about to shut the lobby experience down. So I'm about to do that. So I'm hitting the breakout rooms and I'm saying close all the rooms. So in about 60 seconds, we're going to be joined by the others who have been chilling in the lobby. All breakout rooms will close in 47 seconds. It's very exciting. I see that Robyn just took the opportunity to be like, yes, I'm in. I'm leaving.
It was super easy. Just pop up. Just popped up. Yeah.
Indeed. Colleagues, I should give you fair warning. I hit record automatically to see what's going on. All right, and we have folks joining. I see that the breakout room is going to close in about 19 seconds. Excellent. As we wait for our friends to join us from the lobby, I will do the basic thing that I always do, which is review the agenda. We will go around and say who we are, who are on this call today. And it looks like everyone should be joining us. Oh, this is exciting. All right, this is actually working. I'm very excited. Seeing lots of faces. Everyone seems to have successfully made it from the lobby. All right. So welcome to Digital Producing and Transmedia Producing in an Age of Pandemic, session number 3. In today's session, we will be doing the same thing we've been doing. This is a peer learning exchange group. So we're basically going to introduce ourselves to each other, share our challenges, share the discoveries we've made this week, and then possibly concentrate on a few either specific topics of ideation. That could be we want to talk about monetization and how do we actually do this right. It might be we want to talk about what are all of the different ways that we can be presenting our work beyond streaming. What does that even mean? We've got some options for that part of the conversation. But let me kick us off introducing myself and going over our agenda. In the notes section or in the chat, there should be a Google document for everyone to have access to. Please, please, please drop links to the projects you're talking about in there. If you can, you save me a big pile of labor if you can also post them to the Transmedia Facebook group. But if you don't, I will get around to reposting and sharing those links with others. My name is Claudia Alec. My gender pronouns are they, their, she, hers. I'm going to take a quick moment since we are on the Zoom platform for this meeting to rename myself and just add my gender pronouns, they, their, she, hers, interchangeably. I am speaking to you from Bay Area, land of the Ohlone people. The people are still alive. And I think that the thing that I am most hungry to talk about today will be how to balance accessibility and security since I experienced a Zoom bombing yesterday. And you can hear that story later if you'd like to. I'm gonna pass the mic to Tiffany. I'm passing it to Tiffany. Ah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tiffany Vega-Gibson. I did get coronavirus, very bad. I was hospitalized for a week on oxygen, but I am now home recovering. It has been 23 days since I have seen my family. I've been isolated away from them, but that is hopefully going to end this week. I am here. I've been furloughed from my job. I work for Audience View, which is a ticketing software company, for 6 months. So I am just here to listen and learn and see what everybody's doing because I disappeared off the planet for 2 weeks. So I didn't know what was going on. All of this stuff was happening on the internet. I didn't know. So hi, everybody. And I'm a theater producer based in New Orleans, Louisiana. And that's it.
So last week we did a thing, I'm now recalling, I remember how we did this pass the mic thing. We did it through the chat function where folks queued up and said in the chat, I'll go next, I'll go next. That felt like a really graceful way to do it. So go right ahead, Sabrina.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Hamilton speaking to you from Western Massachusetts, the land of the Pecumtuck people. Massachusetts, though, is the state where they have recently disenfranchised the Wampanoag tribe, and I just want to remind people that these issues are happening right now. And I'm from the CoFest, eager to talk about some of the things connected with getting artists paid and to share something about some of the of a successful online platform I've been on. That's it for me. And I'm going to mute myself.
All right, let's see. Tanya's up next. Go for it.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Tanya Neumeyer. My pronouns are they, them. Access needs currently met. I'm coming at you from Toronto, Ontario, which is the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, the Petun, the Anishinaabe, and Mississauga of the New Credit. So it's a traditional meeting place, and we are working at the Toronto Poetry Slam, which is an arts organization that I'm a part of, to center Indigenous work as and when we can. And we've had our 3rd online poetry slam this Friday. So we are balancing a similar need with, as Claudia mentioned, of security and accessibility, while asking big questions about how can we support artists at this time? And, you know, my personal question is, what does a living wage for artists look like in this time? Thanks. Khulud.
Hello, everyone. My name is Khulud Sawaf, and my pronouns are her, she, her, hers, and I'm speaking to you from Fayetteville, Arkansas, the land of the Caddo, the Osage, and the Quapaw. My access needs are met, and I'm really eager to hear more about practicality of doing work digitally, the audience experience, and maybe experiment a little bit with that. And,
I think that's me. Yeah. Hey friends, Deborah Eliezer, she, her. I'm with Fool's Fury Theater, and calling to you from Western Sonoma County, ancestral land of the Pomo, and outside west of Healdsburg, also known as Healdsburg. And I think my question today is also, how do we create sustainability? I'm experiencing it both as the artist and as a teaching artist, and also as a producer, taking care of other artists. I'm in a situation right now where my producer of a class that we're trying to put online, she's just assuming I'm just going to do everything for cheaper, even though it takes much longer to prepare for an online class. So check. Happy to be here.
Hey, I'm Erin. I think I'm going next. I am calling in from the East Bay of the Bay Area, the Ohlone Chochenyo area. My access needs are being met. And I am trying to move. I'm calling on behalf, I'm working with both Magic Theater and with Amplify, which is part of the Bay Area Women's Theater Festival. We had an event scheduled for the 18th and 19th of this month. And we took a week where we were just like, oh, well, we're just not doing that right now. And we started a podcast where we're interviewing people who were scheduled to be part of that to keep the buzz going. We are in the great advantage position of being able to, because it's a lot of solo shows and various and talks and stuff like that, we will be able to go to reschedule it whenever theaters open. And we should be able to do it pretty quickly once theaters open. So we're actually very actively looking at how we can advance it so that people are really ready for it when it happens. So I am looking for, and one thing we're going to do as part of that is actually do an online component during those hours that we were going to do something on the 18th. So I'm on a super steep learning curve. Like basically by tomorrow, I need to know how we're going to do some of this things. So what I'm really interested in is, I don't want to just put something up to put something up. I only want to put up something that is genuinely interesting to watch, that moves our art form, if not forward, at least sideways in an interesting way. And trying to figure out how do we do 3 hours of programming? Do we do 6 hours of programming? What would people want to check into? And then how do we, with our limited technical capability, know how to involve them and make them feel like they are there? And of course, each event that we're going to be programming is a little different from the others. So we're learning a lot of things at the same time. So any practical knowledge, anybody knows any awesome tech person who would be willing to just jump in and do this with us, anything like that, we'd be grateful to hear about. Oh, and can one of the hosts let in Ariella Wolfe? She's part of our team and she's stuck in the waiting room, she says. And I'm going to mute.
Hi, everybody.
Sorry to interrupt, Robyn. I'm just going to take a moment to do a transparent process observation and also to coach people on what we're doing since they just entered the space. Thank you so much for joining us. Apologies for having you stuck in the waiting room for I think at least a minute. I'm just going to transparently let you all know, I was busy listening and taking analog notes on a piece of paper like an animal, and not engaging with the digital interface that was telling us that people were wanting to be admitted. And the way the waiting room works is you're stuck in there unless you get admitted. So welcome to the space. We are quickly introducing ourselves, name, gender, pronoun, where we're coming from in the world, and naming a challenge or a project that we're working on. So I'm giving the mic back to Robyn, and folks are queuing up to introduce and speak through the chat function. Check.
Hi, I'm Robyn, and pronouns are she, her, hers. I am coming from North Bay area, so Miwok territory up here. And I guess access needs being met. I haven't actually heard that terminology yet, so I'm assuming that's I'm safe, I'm happy, I'm healthy. Is that more or less? Okay. Yes, access needs being met. Thanks to unemployment. I have a couple of different projects that I'm working with on. One of which is I work with SF Shakespeare as a resident artist. I'm teaching their Upstart Crows class on Saturdays. We had normal classes in February and January, and then suddenly had to switch from an in-face meeting, awesome, clowning, fantastic class to non-interactive, touching at all, to make a production of Much Ado About Nothing that's being performed next Saturday. Ayo. And so we are learning a lot. I am learning a lot about lights in the room. I'm learning a lot about how to like pass something to somebody in another. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. We have Baraccio being apprehended over the screen. And so there's some chest action and acting happening. The kids are being really awesome about all the experimentation that we're doing, and I'll let you know how it goes, but there's that one. Then there's also, and then so within that, I'm also helping Phil Lowry, who is the education department leader of SF Shakes. We have to do camps. That's where a lot of income comes for that particular business, and so we're trying to figure out how to do Zoom camps. So he's having to rewrite everything. So I'm going to try and help him out with that. On top of that, I worked for the Mountain Play at in Marin, and Mountain Play is basically a one-time-a-year show. It happens every year about now. So it's been canceled, and so now we're trying to figure out how to make money and stay alive, since we're really only that one-time-a-year show. When we can't do it. So I'm interested in learning about, I saw in the notes, I was trying to catch up on notes from last week that everyone was talking about like a tip jar or something, and I was thinking about double the donation, if anybody has memberships for that, seeing if there's a way to use that in the chat or something along those lines. So yeah, I'm interested in the idea of being able to keep our artists alive, the ones that can help Mountain Play come back and be saying that we're still here, you know, we're not just going to go away because we missed a year. And then also being able to pay them, pay us, pay, yeah, the money bit. I think that's where I'm be most interested to see what people are thinking about. Thanks.
Hi, I think I'm next. My name's Michael. I'm from Portland, Oregon, the ancestral home of the Chinookan. And I'm a high school theater teacher and director, and so I'm going all online and feeling a little overwhelmed with that. Right before everything was shut down here, we were able to live stream full-length production that was really successful, and I'm curious about learning about other ways of doing that, given that we want to have more of a season this year and next year, because the kids are missing out on a lot. So that's where I'm coming from.
Hey, Michael, nice to meet you. I'm Patricia Miller. I'm in San Francisco, and we're the Ramatash people of the Ohlone group originate from. I'm one of the Women's Theater Festival instigators Also working with Amplify and with a new play development entity with Erin and another producer. I'm also an independent producer, and I run a company that actually only works at Christmas, is one of my main things, and I want to create a living project for them, not just to find a sustainable action for my actors, but also to keep building my audience, because my company's 6 years old and it's completely self-produced, and this is the time of year that I would be preparing and raising funds and booking the space. And it's just as a nomadic theater company, it's a big deal, and it's very different from being one of the big regional companies that have regular grants. Sorry, I'm feeling a little under the weather, so I think I'm mostly here to listen. I'm particularly interested in not only sustainability for artists, but also audience engagement strategies. Like Claudia, I noticed that you were doing some stuff with the lobby and the breakout rooms, and I've been attending as an audience many of these online hodgepodge Brady Bunch productions, and I've started to get a little bored, and particularly because my show is panto, my Christmas show is panto. It's very audience engaged. I want to know, I'm just trying to come up with some solutions about mounting something that's more engaging. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Margaret Kemp, and I'm in Davis, California. Can you hear me? Everybody can hear me? Great. And I think I mentioned this last time, I missed last week because I had production meeting, because before we left campus, I cast Antigone for the stage. And as I felt this creeping along, I decided to that I wasn't going to not do the production. I was just going to move ahead. Just go ahead. We don't know what's going to happen. And I say we started rehearsal, and things are moving forward. There's absolutely no contact with students here. We can't ask them to come to campus. We really can't ask them to do anything, so the bounds are very challenging. And I'll share this because I think this was an exciting thing that I woke up with yesterday morning, working on this, and I started to think, think about this space not as these little chunks, but as the actual theatrical space. And the things that you can do here are the actual theatrical things that you can do. So I'm not saying it's not a play and we're just going to do the Brady Bunch thing and just do it, direct address, because you would walk around your stage and go into the dark places and think about the actual space and the actual tools of the space as a space and tools. So I started thinking about, well, what if the camera, what if this thing is the thing that moves around, this thing, the iPad or the phone or whatever it is. What if that thing is moving around? And what if people are coming in and out of conversations or doing something like that? Claudia just did. I'm gonna ask you how you did that. So it's suddenly, and there were elements of the performance that I want to see if they can come into this space. So I was considering strongly elements of dance, and I don't want it to be the Brady Bunch. I want to say this is a theatrical space, yeah, and figure out how to actually use it as such. I'd be welcome to go back to an actual theatrical space and sit in the dark and watch the actors, but until that happens, this is the space, with a front and a back and sides, and people can come in and we can do strange noises and make shapes with our bodies as well. So I have 17 actors. and a costume designer. Two of them, one of them is in Tokyo, the other one is in Singapore. So they come to rehearsal, bless their hearts, at 2 a.m. Even though I said, I can work with you independently. No, we have to come. This is very important. So I think the students are feeling the importance of this. Yeah, that's it. Hassan was here last week and he told me to say he'll be back next week, but he couldn't come. And then I'm going to direct a Shakespeare project on the train. He wanted me to let you know. Thank you.
I'm Ariella. I'm coming to you from Novato, California, also home of the Coast Miwok people. I'm the other producer. We're one of the other producers working with Erin and Patricia on the Bay Area Women's Theater Festival. And also I see Anne James on this call, who I had the pleasure, I don't know if her video or audio is on. Anyway, she was one of the people I had a pleasure of being on a new play reading with on Zoom a couple weeks ago. I think this week I'm coming to you with questions about hosting online work. I've been learning a lot about streaming platform OBS to stream onto Twitch, or it can also do Facebook and YouTube. Steep learning curve, trying to support our work with the Amplify 24-hour theater festival. It's now some format of theater festival online, and really grateful for the team we're working with. We're going to make something work, but trying to figure out how to serve the team, how to best support a streaming experience that's some combination of live and pre-recorded work and possibly video recorded work that's then shared through a platform. Also had an exciting experience with our Amplify team getting ready to do artist conversations to amplify the work that's not being seen in a physical stage space yet, and using an app or program called Zencaster to do podcasting. Did a trial run with one of our producers this week and just had a lot of fun. I was like, this is cool. It sounds good. It's not something I have any experience with at all, but inspired by other theater companies doing some combination of like radio play and podcast work. I didn't think I would be getting into that, but here we are. Anyway, I think I have to jump off like at 11, but I'm here also to listen and see what I can learn.
And I believe Anne has not introduced themselves, and that is our last voice. I gave an upward lilt because I wasn't sure, and I appreciate you're all giving me like, yes, head nods or facial expressions being like, yes, you have assumed correctly. Hello, Anne. Are you there? All right, well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep the meeting moving if Anne has stepped away from the phone, but welcome Anne to introduce themselves when they can return. I'm just going to do a shout out and repeat out to this note that was in the chat that says it would be great if you could put those apps and softwares into the notes. Just going to repeat out loud, please put all of your links into the notes. It's super useful because people who don't attend this meeting, they visit the notes. So it's useful for them to have a direct link to your Facebook event, a direct link to your website, a direct link to the piece of software you're messing around with. Whatever information you can put in there, that's super useful. We're not doing minutes, we're doing notes. We're trying to leave something that's efficient and useful for folks. We will try our best to copy paste from the chat into the Google Doc, but if you have the ability just to drop it straight into the Google Doc, you are so invited. One of the methods that we do for these meetings are, and I named the practice last night because I was like, oh, this is a practice I've always had. I like to do relaxed meetings. You know how you have relaxed theater? This is relaxed meetings. So, and we're doing relaxed meetings that are asynchronously accessible. So this means we recognize that it's a pandemic right now. So it's unreasonable to expect that you will be available every single week at the exact same time. Also, we recognize that everyone is also working on this problem. So there are actual multiple learning spaces, multiple spaces of people creating solutions that are taking place simultaneously. And it's okay for us to not be in every single place at the same time. So we will be doing our best to record these meetings, share them afterwards, have the notes, share those afterwards. If you need to be a human being and take a bio break, you don't need to ask us for permission. You just go do that. If you need to be a human being and pick up a cell phone and communicate with a family member, it's a pandemic. There is no expectation that you will honor this space more than you will honor all of the other spaces you are connected to. Relaxed meeting, baby. If a cat jumps into here, we're going to be really happy that your cat has come visited the meeting. All right. Is Anne around? Can Anne introduce themselves? All right, I'm going to keep us moving. Let's get to the conversation. Super fast. This week, has anyone, I thought the first conversation we could have would be the security and access conversation. Has anyone experienced a Zoom bombing or the equivalent? Robyn, would you like to share your story?
I don't have a, I'm pretty sure this is what happened. When we did our second Zoom meeting with the kids, we had just started, and I saw on the, I hadn't started the wait list thing yet. And I saw on my participants, God, I think it just said student on the, like on the thing. And so I assumed it was one of my kids who just hadn't typed in their name yet. And then all of a sudden, like all of our sound sounded like chipmunks. Like every time somebody talked, it was like this really high pitched, awful sound. And I was looking at it, and I didn't say anything to the kids. And I don't think Phil and Rebecca and I even talked about it really. It was just like, I think this is someone who shouldn't be here. So I clicked off, and I had everybody sign off, and then we all signed back on, and it was fine again. Pretty sure that was a Zoom bomb though.
Mm-hmm. Yesterday, I attended it was an open mic for veterans that was being produced by Art to Action. And in the middle, about an hour into their open mic, somebody started to broadcast porn. So just like really just like graphic, expletive, just like just a whole lot, right? And it was all African-American. So it was male African-American porn. But the voices yelling the N-word a whole lot. They were a young male voice and a young female voice, and they were both definitely white. So it was a very interesting experience of going, this is definitely racially coded. They're using the rhetoric of white supremacy, but they're assaulting us with queer Black imagery. So that's interesting and awful. And I ironically had a conversation with the organizers the day before to say, these are the settings you have to set yourself in Zoom. Unfortunately, Zoom was not designed for your safety. Zoom was designed for accessibility, ease of use. It is not end-to-end encrypted, which means as a platform, it's not safe for your students at all in terms of like their data not being snatched and used in funky ways. It's 100% connected to Facebook. Facebook is snatching our data. But also you have to go into the settings to say other people aren't allowed to screen share, which is complicated because I actually had my settings set to everyone can screen share for these specific exercises because I wanted to be able to allow a random person who was participating to be able to share their screen if they wanted to show us their platform or something they were doing. So I recognize that there's a balance to the more secure I make my space, the less accessible for other people's use it becomes, which kind of annoys me. Any other observations, ideas around this idea of our online spaces and them just literally being attacked by people?
First of all, that's horrible. It seems I've heard of another bombing in an Invoke meeting, which is an Oakland collective of artists that's starting. And I know that this week Zoom has instigated passwords that you have to enter a password. Does anyone know if that is improving the security?
Well, I'll say this about, and this is specifically about Zoom, but I think we can, oh, and I see Patricia raising their hand.
Yeah, I actually put a password on my online classes, but none of the students seem to have to use it, even though I set up the invitation to use the specific password. And people are like, yeah, I saw that, but I wasn't asked to use it. So I don't know if it's actually working as a key or not.
I read something, and I thought I'd muted myself. I read something that if you use the link, the password is encoded in the link, but if you're trying to do a call in or something and use a specific code, that's where the password is necessary. So they're actually digitally able to encode the password into the link because it's something that you actually sent directly to them. It's so that outside parties can't bomb you because they didn't get the link, they just somehow found the code.
This is my understanding of where Zoom is right now. So Zoom did not design itself to be safe for any of us, but they have noticed that we're all upset. So they have enabled waiting rooms to be automatically, like that's a thing that's just automatically now on all Zooms, and you have to actually go in to manually say, I don't want the waiting room option. I'll be honest, I don't like the waiting room option. Why? I just in real time experienced seeing somebody who was joining us from a 917 number I didn't recognize, but I didn't take the time to say, who are you? What's your story? Why are you entering this space? I decided to lean into the idea of, if this person's trying to disrupt, I'll just kick them out immediately. So that's the place of control where I've got a more permeable door, but I'm acting as a bouncer. And the way I have my settings set up is if I kick you out, you cannot get back in. And I see a hand up. I want to say one thing about registering in codes. So make sure you don't lose your question. So you can set these all up to, you have to register to use it. You can also set that up that you have to use a code to use it. The event that I went to last night, the mistake they made was they had an invitation software attached to their website. So you would go to the website, sign up for the event, and then it would automatically send you the Zoom information. It did that, but it didn't send us the password code. So 5 seconds before their event was supposed to start, they kept getting all these messages from like a bunch of users being like, we can't get in, we can't get in, we can't get in. And instead of emailing us the code directly, they put it on the Facebook event. Because they were like, oh, we just want to open the doors and let everyone in, which is what caused them to be unsafe immediately. So they did all of the right safety choices, and then they were like, oh, we've made ourselves so safe no one can get in. Patricia.
I'm just wondering if having a co-host, like even in this small group, if one of us was, keeping an eye on, we're a co-host, we're keeping an eye on the door, that we could somehow manage that in a different way. And I don't know if anyone has a solution to that.
This meeting has a co-host. Go ahead, Tanya.
I'll share some general thoughts about what my team and I have used and discussed, because I don't think it's a one-sided solution. I think on one hand, Zoom is getting the feedback and needs to continue to work on it. And if I were a programmer, I have some ideas about how I would work to solve that problem. But for now, I'm working in poetry. And so my co-host and I were working to manage the waiting room. There's a function called lock meeting. So we decided if we had, 75 people in the slam and the show was going, we were going poet to poet performing, that if at any point there was someone who came in disruptively, we would lock the meeting. So we would keep whoever was here and not let any new people join, which is not ideal, but we're looking at it as a temporary working solution and something that hopefully we won't have to do in the future when Zoom improves. We also spent a lot of time working on using our Command Control M, which is to mute everyone. And you can toggle that so that people can't unmute themselves. So we're a show where we want to be really highly interactive at the Poetry Slam. We've asked people mostly to contain that to the chat. We took off the screen sharing option. And you can also control Command U, which is the unmute everyone option. So then you can kind of invite cheering. It's very noisy because the sound overlaps, but it does give people a chance to offer, some live feedback. And we'll see how that plays out in our recording of the third slam. So yeah, I think there are several things that a team can do to work to secure their event, and at the same time as trusting that Zoom is working on it. So we had our show on Friday, and on Wednesday night there were two very disruptive people who came in and spoke over a brilliant young poet who thankfully was a feature poet and knew how to handle those disruptions in terms of continuing with the work. But for running a show with new artists, we can imagine that would be really hard, and is certainly unpleasant and disruptive in the space. So those are the things that we're working on for now.
And this is Claudia. To a certain extent, this thing that we're experiencing in digital space is something that we were already experiencing in meet space, IRL space. These things happened. I remember being at the Berkeley Poetry Slam, sitting next to a lady who was in her cups, and she became loud and disruptive, and she had to be escorted out of the club. But it did take, she interrupted two separate poets because everyone was trying to be nice, and it took the entire room being like, get out, for that person to be escorted out. So I do think that there's a lot of different ways, but there's also, the question is how secure you're trying to make your entry point, but then also what are your thoughtful practices you've already decided on this is how we're going to handle this if it happens in the moment. And also in the awareness that this stuff takes place in all of our spaces, not just Zoom.
Yeah, I would say that just as a footnote on the Wednesday night show, I think the disruption was minimized because there was a collective ownership of the space. People in the slam community are used to like booing people off stages if they're saying something racist. Somebody spoke up, someone knew who it was, even though it was 100 people on the call, and that Tyler guy was immediately removed. So it was the collective ownership. We understand that things happen in the space and we're used to managing it to a certain degree. So that can be.
I have a question quickly for Tanya about when you locked the meeting, did that keep that person who was being disruptive in, or did you identify them and then remove them and then reopen, or how did that get managed?
Right. So locking the meeting means you're keeping all the people in. So you need to, at the same time, also find out who the disruptive person or people are and get rid of them. What we experienced on the Wednesday night call is once there was one interruption, there was a flood of new people coming to the meeting as though they had said like, hey, this is a meeting you can disrupt. So that's the reason to do both of those things, get rid of the disruptive person and lock the meeting. We also prepared all of our artists that we said in a worst case scenario, we will restart the meeting on a new link. Like that was our third or fourth backup plan. And so we had told all the artists that if need be, check that collective email, we'll send you a new Zoom link and we will start again. So that was our worst case. We also had planned that if need be, there would be breakout rooms as a debriefing space especially for the feature poet, to be able to collect themselves, talk to a person about how we would proceed, one of the organizers, and then come back to the main space. So it really helps to have more than one person managing the show and to have thought of what's your risk management plan at level A, B, C, D, E, F. And for now it goes on. Hopefully the list will get shorter as Zoom improves its platform.
And again, I remind us that these kinds of disruptions are not Zoom specific, they are the world specific. It's interesting, the Zoom bombing I experienced was definitely racialized and gendered. So it was definitely heterosexist, white heterosexist, male, patriarchal stuff happening, the rhetoric of that. But I also recognize that some of these are just folks who want to just cause a ruckus and interrupt nice things happening. So thank you for those thoughtful notes. That's really useful. Anything else on security, access? I think you did name a couple of practices to keep in mind, which are, do you have a private way to communicate with your audience? And does your audience know to go to that place to communicate? So for instance, with this open mic, it was an open mic I didn't have a readily pre-existing relationship with, but I knew the artistic director. So I was able to, when I couldn't get the access code to work, I went to the Facebook event space. That's the only space I could think of to go to get more information. And then later I realized I could text message her. So I loved it when she emailed all of us with the new address. That was useful. Any other thoughts on security safety? Or do we want to move ourselves on? All right.
I do have to say that, so as I said, for background, I work for a company that called Audience View. Well, I'm furloughed for 6 months. Audience View owns, I'm going to give you the old names because we rebranded. Audience View, Ovation Tix, Vendini, and University Tix. Okay, so I manage the Audience View. I'm a client success manager for the Audience View platform. And I manage the small to medium size accounts. I don't know what's happening right now because I'm furloughed, but I know that there has been a conversation in the ticketing industry to see how we can move ticketed performances online, right? So people can pay a fee in order to view the content online. And that's something that I know, I'm pretty sure by the time I get back to work, that this is something that my company will have fully invested in. Because I'm furloughed because we make money based off of people selling tickets and they can't afford to pay me right now. And so eventually I think that with the ticketing companies, we'll be able to move from Zoom, right? And move to some other platform that you have full control over because it is a ticketed event that is somehow done online. I don't know. I'm not part of the tech team. I'm part of the client success team. So that's something that I am very positive is going to happen in the future because the ticketing platforms are all suffering right now. Ticketmaster, like everyone is like suffering and they're gonna have to figure it out in this new world. And I do have to say that my company has for years been telling our clients, which are live performing arts organizations, that we need to move to a virtual space because when we get pushback, because they always say, and this is no disrespect to this generation, I respect them. Our bread and butter are baby boomers. And I always say there will be millions less of baby boomers in 10 years. And you need to put your focus on Gen Z and millennials because that is who is going to be attending your performances in the future. And that almost 50% of those populations are people of color. And so you need to start changing how you program. And they say, well, that's our bread and butter. I'm like, they're not going to be. They're literally, unfortunately, going to be dead. So you need to focus on how to engage this group of this demographic, and one of the ways to do that is in a virtual space. So if anything, I feel like it's awesome that you all are doing performances via Zoom. That's amazing. And if anything, this is forcing the live performing arts industry to do this, what they should have been doing years ago, and forcing us to think outside the box about how we present our work, especially for the younger demographic, because they live in a virtual space no matter what. They have been living in a virtual space for over a decade. And we need to start thinking outside the box about how we present our work. So that's like the good thing, I think, that's coming out of this. And that's my rant. I'm done.
Everybody's doing thumbs up. I have not figured out how to make sure I'm always capturing the gallery view. So I'm watching you through the gallery view, but I suspect it's recording the speaker view. So unfortunately, everybody's just seeing my face rather than all of your beautiful faces in gallery view. But yes, everybody's doing thumbs up for that. Yes. I also am reminded that media isn't just computers. So I'm also trying to be thoughtful. Ooh, looks like a froze. Can you still hear me? I'm seeing nodding faces. Excellent. All right. Yay. Inconsistent connectivity. So you kind of transferred us to the second part of another part of the conversation, which is platforms for distribution and monetization, and some of the different ways we're doing that. So the event that I went to last night, they had on their website, they used Wix, W-I-X, which is a pretty simple, it's like Squarespace or Weebly. It's a pretty basic, make your own website kind of a deal. They probably have like some kind of add-on plugin that they purchased to sell tickets as a theater. And then they used that to sell me access to their Zoom event. So that's already an option for you. You can create a portal that somebody has to pay to go through to actually get the password or the code to get into your event. And so that's kind of like paying something at the door immediately. What are some of the other ways we've been distributing our work and monetizing it? Or we've witnessed others distributing and monetizing?
I have to be honest, I brought this up to my institution and they were like, oh, we're not gonna think about that. Well, you better. So I'm glad this is coming up because they haven't investigated it yet. So thank you.
I've been seeing some online fitness classes on an app that you have to pay for called Patreon. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
It's Patreon, because you're a patron of the art. Oh, whatever it is. I have a Patreon. You can sponsor me for $1 a month. I keep my bar very low. I'm very accessible.
Yes, I've seen that. And I don't think, what else? I mean, I've been seeing a lot of the people on Instagram Live, they've been doing like, here's my Venmo, here's my Cash App, you know, like just simple, like they are posting it free online, but they are giving the option of people to pay.
Loving that. So we've named Patreon. I saw Michael with their hand up, and I see Ariella with their hand up. So we've just talked about Patreon as a potential way to, on Patreon platform, you can give people who are paying you more money special access to some of that content, and then you can adjust the level of access you're giving them, and Patreon takes a cut of that money, but packages it up real nice for you for your taxes. And then you have the other option of folks literally putting out their digital hat, which is their Venmo account or their Cash App account or their Ko-fi account. I'm trying to recall the other apps people use to be like, give me a little bit of money. Michael, you had your hand up, and then Ariella.
I was just going to add that it seems like what most people are doing is putting it up for free and putting out their hat. That's what we had to do, but we also had to say, just send checks, and then they closed the school, so we're not even getting the mail for the checks. So I don't have a lot to add there.
You're muted, Claudia.
I wasn't saying anything. I was just being like, oh, yeah, I'll unmute myself if it's important.
Okay, gotcha. So I was going to share something not theater related, but a payment method that has some quirks that probably need to be worked out. It's very small scale. So I am teaching a singing class for kids and their families through an existing organization that already had a system set up for like online registrations. There's a link, they give their credit card information or whatever, but I'm teaching it in a private group on Facebook via Facebook Live. So it's more like a sing-along rather than a Zoom situation. But the one part of it that is tricky with like invitations and things is the way that people get added to the Facebook group means that they need to give an email address that then gets invited. to the Facebook group. Like I haven't found a streamlined way where like they register on the online platform and then a pop-up message gives them, like with Zoom, at least they can get sent a code or something. But because it's a small class, it's easy enough for me to go in and be like, oh, so-and-so registered. Now I'm gonna invite their email to the Facebook group. But in terms of payment, nothing's really changed. So that's kind of a relief to be like, we didn't have to come up with a whole new way of like monetizing the class. It was just pay the organization and I'm still an employee. Like, you know, I work like 2 hours a week, but you know, it so far it's okay.
I was just going to say the only other ones that I've heard of how it works, or it seems like it's been working, is Marin Theater Company they just opened their new show Love, and they had managed to record it like right before Bay Area went under shelter in place. So then they made that recording available. Granted, they were lucky to actually have their actors in the same place and be able to record that. But I think it's been working, that they've been able to sell tickets for that. I'm in a Shots production on Facebook on Wednesday. I think we're going to be asking for money, I would assume, but I don't think that it's being sold tickets beforehand. So I guess there's the choice that we have is that you offer and then I'm going to see a show on the Zoomy bit with theater makers up in Sonoma. That's just 2 of them. But that was just a free registration. So I think that's the choice, is whether we do like you said, the kind of clunky registration where you purchase the ticket. As soon as the administrator gets that registration, they say, okay, I have that email. I'm going to send that email, the password, the connection, or you just make it this broad Facebook, YouTube connection that Zoom has, you know, we could live stream it, and then at the bottom say donations can be made here. It seems like those seems to be the options we have.
And there's a couple of other options. So you can make your YouTube account one that requires subscribing to. So then that YouTube area is a place that you are broadcasting, but you've made it a monetized space where somebody has to pay to be able to access that content. You can, you just named the exercise. So Equity has come up with a deal with our regional theaters that's allowing them to share in a very limited fashion access to seeing their shows. So it's a limited number of tickets and it's a limited number of viewings. And it's so that's an interesting aspect. I also want to name, so we've been talking about the spaces that are about distribution and monetization. Now you can distribute your own content yourself, or you can be on a platform that helps you to distribute your content. So for instance, if you do a podcast on the platform Anchor will not only, you can self-distribute your content. So you make your podcast and you can publish it anywhere, but they'll also publish it to like, not SoundCloud, oh, help me out, people. What's the other online music sharing? Spotify. There are many monetized streaming platforms, as well as there being many monetized teaching platforms. So like my housemate has been taking her yoga classes on a platform that was designed for webinars and monetizing and distributing content in that way. So as much as I'm a big fan of Zoom and I use it myself, but there are a lot of other options folks can be playing around with and using. If we want to, we can spend some time sharing examples, but I don't know if that's the best use of our time since we've got smart brains for having conversations here. Also, keep in mind, you can also have watch parties for audience engagement. I don't know if anyone's participated in any watch parties, hosted a watch party, gone to a watch party. Like the cool thing about a watch party is you can have like 4 or 5 happening at the same time. So it's like, oh, 3 people are watching the Facebook stream, live stream here, but there's 4 people who are doing it here. You can have multiple folks hosting, so that's fun. Thank you for that link, Robyn, for shots. Awesome. Has anyone been doing work on using the platform Twitch on this call? I know somebody named OBS. Has anyone done any Twitch stuff? I see a hand up.
So very, like, I'm sure, barely. It's a word I think I could use. So I've been kind of getting brought up to speed and trained for the purposes of the Bay Area Women's Theater Festival. So I shared in the chat the software itself that you can download and use to get onto your Twitch account or Facebook Live. And then I do have access to like instructions that a very generous person from the North Carolina Women's Theater Festival, North Carolina, shared with me. My experience doing a trial with my own personal Twitch account that I just created just because I don't post content on there, was that like Mac is bad and PC is good. And I knew this already from people who do gaming. There's a lot of lag, and there's a feature you have in the settings, you have to click automatically save my streams for like up to 2 weeks or whatever. Cause if you don't, you can't go back and watch what you did. You're like, I hope that works. So I'm gonna have to do a lot more testing in the context of our producing team. There's sort of like maybe we'll get to it eventually because Women's Theater Festival North Carolina has had a fair amount of success with it. But as some folks have discussed previously on Twitch, you need like the link for the profile where it's going to be streaming, because otherwise, as happened to Patricia, unfortunately, you go wandering through potentially really graphic, violent video games, and like, you know, it's not necessarily the most nurturing space for someone who's just like, I'm trying to find my like theater play streaming. Like they did we did Lauren Gunderson's Natural Shocks as the co-pro with North Carolina and Bay Area Women's Theater Festival, which I wasn't able to see, and I heard it went really well. So I'm trying to learn. I'm in that space of like about to be able to function, hopefully, in partnership with other people sharing the responsibility. Hopefully, it's not just me.
I attended a lovely session, and I'm looking for the link right now so I can share it with you. It was run by, oh, I love it. I don't know. I don't know his actual real name, so I'm just going to call him Cranopus. He's a human being who works in both theater and video game culture. So already had a Twitch stream and those capabilities. And they did a workshop yesterday on how to connect OBS to Twitch and how they're monetizing their work. So that was interesting. Is there anyone on this call that, oh, please go right ahead, Patricia.
I observed, I was part of the quarantine bake-off, which happened about 2 weeks ago, like right at the beginning of the quarantine. And that's a paid platform. They used StreamYard, which obviously comes out of the corporate world. But I gotta say the result was it was a clean version of Zoom, and it had a lot of control. They had a stage manager that was shifting between the focus between the different participants, so you didn't have to watch the non-active participants, and that's StreamYard.
Claudia, I do want to make sure that we have a chance to touch upon some of the other things folks brought up as conversation topics. So, someone talked about what is a living wage. That's a big conversation. Let's see. I do think we're going to want to keep in mind that the field as we know it is continually changing, right? So we're preparing for the possibility for doing fully produced, physically embodied work in the future. But I know, I'm also personally preparing for the fact that I probably won't be able to safely attend theater in a big crowd until there's a vaccine. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I produce events for the people who can be there physically, as well as the people who will not be able to be there physically, which is even more complicated than creating a purely physical event or a purely digital event. Doing both is hard.
I don't know if there's room to say this, but I did a solo performance about 3 years ago or 2 years ago that I created 2 versions of the show. I created one that streamed through YouTube, and I did a live one. And I invited the audience to bring their phones and decide which one they wanted to watch. And it was a really interesting experiment in different types of engagement. So maybe that is also another way of thinking through your question. Like, instead of saying just have the experience of watching theater, how can you engage with both platforms? Because that's really what people do. You know, they have the phone on or they have the iPad on while they're watching the live thing, and they're going back and forth as they need, as they wish. Just offering.
A question for us all. This was our 3rd session that we're holding. And to a certain extent, this has just been the equivalent of me opening up my living room and being like, whoever wants to come and have conversations and ideas around this emerging issue. Is it continuing to be useful to meet on Zoom? Would it be useful to meet on an alternate platform, or is meeting on an alternate platform a thing that will cause chaos for us? Is meeting on a weekly basis a thing that is continuing to feel useful for folks, in the knowledge that you don't need to always come? I just want to ask ourselves out loud, are we actually creating a space that's generating new discoveries for folks? Is this continuing to be useful for everyone?
I could start, and I think I'm responding a little bit both to you, Claudia, and to Margaret, because I'm feeling that for now things are changing pretty quickly, and it helps to be able to learn things and discuss like peer learning incrementally, because there is so much volume of change. So I'm wondering when that pace will, be better shifted to 2 weeks or once a month, once there's a critical mass of learning. I think I've spoken about this in an earlier meeting, but at the Toronto Poetry Slam, we do provide some live coverage on Instagram and on Twitter. It's awkward to do that when it's a Zoom room, but we've still done that. So if you go and check out like our Friday night tweets, there's some quotes. There were stories on Instagram. We haven't posted it to our feed yet, but in my mind, once we have a live event, I'm absolutely committed to also continuing to provide more online access. And so my feeling is that that's when we'll move back to probably live streaming through either Instagram and or Twitter, because we find that the different platforms work well in different ways. Yeah, I'd be open to meeting in another technology, but yeah, I'm not sure which one yet, and happy to discuss.
This is Deborah. I just briefly just wanted to say I agree with Tanya in terms of every week everything seems to be changing, and I'm really interested in the idea of this cohort coming up with some proposed protocol for the industry, for the field. I think other people may be, everybody's struggling with this right now, but if this cohort can come together with like some ways to create an outline for other folks to, I don't know, I'm interested in that. So I want to put that out there. And thank you everyone who's been sharing. It's really quite useful. And I grok the idea of using another platform so that we can understand what it is by using it.
Go right ahead, Elizabeth.
Hey everybody, this is my first time. Rebecca, I'm spacing on names right now. I'm working with SF Shakes. I'm directing Lear. And we are in a multi-trajectoried production. We're trying lots of things, knowing that we may have to move very quickly and shift the way that we're producing it. And so we're really open to a lot of different ways of exploring. But I would like to put out there that I like that I know how to use this format at this moment in time. So that gives me a bit of security. I'm also a teacher at Ruth Asawa San Francisco School of the Arts. So I'm about to do full-on online learning. Like, I run the department. So it's a little bit insane, as any of you else who teach, managing 7 other artists, yay! And trying to figure out how to get them all connected with their artists as well. So what I'm thinking is what might be useful, I can't use this in an education setting, would be like a field trip. And maybe as a group, we take a field trip to Twitch and then we explore it and like, hey, here are the things. Or maybe we take a field trip to whatever this other, you know, do Facebook Live or Instagram Live. I'm curious and I would like to understand it because I feel like we are paving a way. And I think we're actually a company that is actually employing people and is trying to work out union contracts and all of those kinds of things. And so we're really trying to make sure that we keep our artists like lifted up. And I would really love to see what those different avenues are. But I'm a hands-on person, so I need to see it in practice. Me reading about it and trying to do it on my own is very overwhelming. And so if anybody's down for a field trip and has some experience so they can pull everybody along with them, I really like that idea. And I talk with my hands a lot. So thank you.
I'm loving the idea of field trips, since I know that's what I do. I just go to these spaces on my own. I accidentally find really inappropriate stuff and I go, I wasn't looking for that. And then once I found stuff, then I go back to people and I'm like, look what I found. So that sounds like such a fun idea. And I also think that there might be some folks who might be able to, we might be able to set up some places to visit in Twitch. Some appropriate places that have practices that would be useful to learn from. In the meantime, I want to encourage everyone, get a TikTok account and watch the kids TikToking. And the truth is, there's actually some other platforms that the real awesome kids, they're originating dances and practices and ways to communicate on those cool platforms. I'm not cool enough or frankly young enough to be on those platforms. I'm on TikTok, but in TikTok, you will be able to observe some of the shorthand vocabularies that young people have been using to communicate and create stories in these digital spaces. So I'm just going to hand, I'm going to hand to Tanya my cell phone right now. I'm going to hand you my cell phone. Go ahead and grab it. Go ahead and grab my cell phone, Tanya. I'm handing it to you. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. If you have your cell phone, do you have a cell phone? Yeah. I handed it to, I handed it to Michael accidentally. So there we go. There's a bunch of dumb things that we can do. I encourage you, visit a platform, watch some of the things they do, and then experiment with them on your own, or get a couple of friends together and mess around and have some fun. If you don't have a paid Zoom account, you can mess around for free for an hour. Also, one of the other places to think about storytelling languages are comic books. This is a note specifically about Zoom. Zoom puts us into boxes that are next to each other. There are a bunch of languages and like I did a little piece of like language and vocabulary from that. This is a green screen behind me, and then all I did was I moved my computer to give myself a split screen of a different area that I could potentially, like I could go out of the camera and come up in that different area. There's all sorts of dumb stuff you can do in camera in real time in terms of playing around and doing storytelling. Looking at our list of stuff to talk about, I'm going to open the mic up to my other colleagues for any closing ideas, closing thoughts, things to think about. And if folks want to, I'm also going to just give this invite. If anyone else wants to help with managing or helping to decide what we do with this space, I'm all about shared leadership. So if anyone wants to help out with that, let me know, and we will invite you to our planning meetings.
I have a question. Would it be possible for, kind of going along with the idea of the field trips, if we would meet in a Zoom platform, but then let's say Ariella, who was on here a little earlier, they might know how to do the Twitch, and we could share her screen and she could give us like a Twitch field trippy thing, like show us how to do it. There are things I've tried to look at Twitch and I find it very confusing. I heard about it for like fundraising thing through Hootsuite. You can do a fundraising thing, and I tried and it didn't work. So having someone actually like go like, here's this is how you use this part, this would be awesome.
Claudia, I hear you say you'd love some collaboration. I gotta say, I've got too many plates spinning right now, so I can't help with that. But I do like that idea that Robyn just said, that we pick up Elizabeth's field trips, and that maybe 2 or 3 of us from this call, like we know that Ariella is working with Twitch, or me and Erin, for instance, are working with Ariella, and also Zencaster. We've got that going on. So we could together be responsible to present something from those platforms, and maybe 2 or 3 of you could join up around a different platform that you're interested in and bring the research to the class.
Well, we all have the email address of callingupjustice@gmail.com. Please email callingupjustice@gmail.com with things you'd like to present, things you'd like to share. I know that for this meeting, I had a bunch of windows queued up because I was like, well, if the conversation isn't buzzing, I can just literally screen share and we can look at what some other folks are doing. But the conversation was rich. You're all doing really important work. Cultural production is more important now than at any other point in our lifetimes. Right now, there are some really dangerous narratives going around. The act of being connected and truly appreciating each other's humanity feels incredibly important. The act of being able to share authentic story, real story, feels really important. So just want to do a shout out to the necessity of what you all do in the world. Thank you for joining us today to work a muscle just a little bit. And we'll be back same time next week with suggestions for stuff from y'all. And we're going to go on a field trip. Oh, all right, colleagues. I'm going to shut the meeting down if that's okay with folks. All right. Talk to you next week. Feel free to leave comments on the Facebook page, send things through the email, and we will remain in contact. So much.
Thank you.
I must run to another meeting, but do you want to touch base later this afternoon?
Sounds great.
Dope. All right. I'll talk to you later. Thanks.
Good luck with the meeting.
Thank you. End.